Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Align, where we help you live your best life by being your most authentic self, being aligned with others, and aligned with your desired outcomes. Today is a dear topic to all of us. We're exploring practical, successful business development strategies, specifically for the investment management division or investment management industry. And a little bit of background on our panel here today. So we have Michelle, if you don't mind raising your hand, Michelle. Awesome. Michelle has been an allocator for over 10 years, and then Phillip has been in the investment side, both as an allocator and now as a manager for 25 years. And we also have tmichaelj, who has been in the industry and been in business development for 18 years. So we have a really good mix of people on both sides, both as the one vetting out new investments and the one actually representing new investments. And a little bit of background, what kind of sparked this conversation is that oftentimes business development or sales has a negative connotation. You know, there's slick sales tactics that people use, high pressure, but there's really no need to use that. In fact, especially in the investment management division, where it's much more about long-term relationships, those strategies just doesn't work. So if you look at what a BD person is supposed to do, they actually facilitate, communicate, and educate, rather being, a forceful salesperson, so to speak. So I do want to open up to the panel and start off with the question of, what makes a good BD person? What qualities are non-negotiable or necessary? So Phillip, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I think authenticity and good communication. Like you mentioned, I think most of us, we want to be educated. We want to know what's going on in markets and in individual strategies. And so we want that communication, we want that education, but we want it in an accessible way and not in a forceful manner.
Great. Michelle?
Sure. So I think investment management industry is very special in the sense that the products you're selling are obviously very sophisticated, complicated, and also have a very interesting feature that it's very hard to hard sell something that people don't need, especially in this industry. You're facing with many sophisticated institutional investors, and they have their process to go through as well, right? From the initial call to all the way to investment committee to convince more senior people within the firm, the process they have to go through. So for a product to get through that process, it really has to fit the need of that person's portfolio or a company's portfolio. So you're only as good as the product you bring on, and also, is there a need for it? So being able to understand that is very important in both the use of your time and then the end results, right? I think that those are it's very important thing to keep in mind when start a conversation with the allocator.
Michelle, I do want you to share a really funny story. No names, no firm necessary, but about someone who joined a firm and he reached out to you because they thought, okay, finally we can do a deal together. So it would be great for you to share that story with everyone, because I think—
Oh yeah, that's more funny than anything. I think this individual, definitely a character. He worked with two startups. Both of them did not end up succeeding in a couple of years of time, which is very common in hedge fund industry. Things start and don't work out. And the third place that he joined is a multi-billion, asset management firm. I don't know how large that menu is. Everything under the sun they offer. So there's only a few there in the U.S. So it was just a funny conversation. He's like, well, I think we got everything. Is there anything you need from this menu? Previously, I'm limited by the thing I can offer. Now I have a large menu. There's got to be something you can use, right? It was the conversation, yeah. But yeah, he feels pretty safe there.
Again, back to fit, right? At least now he has more tools in his toolkit to show you, but ultimately he can't. You've also one time said this to me, you can't sell a smart investor, and you don't want to, right? Because if they're going to come with you, you could sell them, they can be sold out of it immediately. You want them to have their own decision, and it's a matter of, I want this product, I want this kind of strategy. Is it your product of the menu that we actually want.
Right. And like you said, if you can hard sell something, that means that those people are not good investors. They will leave at the drop of a dime, right? And then probably usually it's the wrong time to leave. And any manager is going to have their ups and downs, throughout the cycle.
Right. Team Michael?
I think the most important trait in a business development professional, from which everything else emanates, is being a great listener. That means going into meetings with allocators, asking them questions, and kind of going deeper and deeper and understanding the whys of the allocators' goals and objectives at kind of an institutional level, but also in terms of who they are as individuals working within a corporate governance structure. And if you do that on a sustained basis, you get to learn so much about them. And instead of pushing something, you're developing a relationship. And when you go back for the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth meeting, if you have good knowledge management, you're capturing all that information. You're not starting every meeting from zero, and they don't think you're wasting their time. And if you're smart, like Phillip and Michelle said, if you have interesting things to talk about, not just about your products, but about markets, about investments, about asset allocation, then you prove yourself to be a thought leader. You prove yourself to be someone in the massive competition to get mind share, someone they actually want to talk to because they think they'll get some value add out of the conversation. And I think ultimately, if you were a great listener, you're going to understand, how do I make the best fit between that allocator's goals and objectives and what my investment team does well, our expertise. And thus, product development is really driven in that world by what the allocators want to see. And I think that makes for better relationships.
Love it. Yeah. Perfect segue. So, speaking to you, speaking to all of you and a lot of my peers in this industry, there's so many common complaints about, business development professionals and certain skill sets that are lacking. What skill set do you think a lot of BD people on the buy side are missing, and that are extremely important for you guys to feel comfortable about learning about the strategy and ultimately closing the deal? So let's switch it up. Michelle, you want to go first?
Yeah, actually, it's great. I mean, I just bring Michael's point up again. I think what he considers the most critical skill is actually missing in a lot of business development professionals. And I think, once I talked to a very successful salesperson in a slightly different industry, but I think this applies to everything. He said, when you're a good salesperson during a meeting, you are actually speaking very little. If you're talking like more than half of the time, yep, you're not a good salesperson. But you're just feeding the information people probably don't need, and you just keep talking. It really depends on the other person's personality. They might just sit there and take it, and then after this meeting, they're like, "We had enough. We don't want to have any more meetings." So I think you can judge by the amount of time the salesperson actually talks by how well that meeting went. I really think that is a critical skill set, and I think. For me, people don't talk to me, too often, are usually the people I actually get a lot out of when I do talk to them, is how I see the skill set is important.
That's funny you say that, because most of the time when someone says to me afterwards, "Oh, that was a really good meeting," I was like, I said 2 words or 2 sentences, right? And to your point, I think this is so true, where people care more about how much you care, and people want to be understood first and foremost, than trying to understand your agenda, right? So to your point, when you listen, and that way it's clear, okay, what are their needs? Do I have the products to service their needs? And if not, what can we recreate to get them that, right? Because ultimately, you're going to close a sale if you're giving clients what they want. Very simple. Team Mike, Phillip, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It kind of comes back to that listening and communication. And just like what you said, if you don't have what they want, maybe you can create it. And actually just made me think of, like, one of our best relationships was when I was in my last firm, was a group that essentially developed a product for us, and it ended up being a multi-billion-dollar strategy that they were the first to bring to market, and it's been very successful. And that was because they weren't trying to take something that they had and fit it into a round peg into a square hole, or vice versa. They were listening, they were taking notes, and then kind of happened that there was an opportunity that was something that we were looking for, the marketplace didn't have, and they were kind of the right organization to put it together.
And T. Michael?
What I try to purge out of my conversations, what I advise everyone who has ever worked with me to get rid of, is anything that smacks of salesy conclusions, like best in class, unique, differentiated. Those are judgments that are best left for the allocator to make when she or he's evaluating you relative to the market. You should just talk substantively and factually about what you do in terms of your strategies, what the talents and the experience base of the team is, how you deal with things, your processes, all that. Rid of anything that really smacks like you're trying to sell them something, and make it more descriptive and let them compare you. And actually, they're in the seat where they see many people, if not everyone in a market, and they can make the judgment, oh, which firm really is best in class or leading or differentiated.
Yes, that's something that I think you've always shown by example, and you led by example. It's show, not tell. Evidence speaks way louder than what you'll be saying. Super helpful. Obviously, as we can tell through COVID, and there will be very unpredictable events. Poor performance does happen. It does occur, and you're going to need to have those conversations. How would you like your BD person to handle when these things happen? Because not if, they will happen. What are some, strategies or ways that you felt that, I actually appreciate that. I'm not going to run for the hills now. I'm going to stay with you. I trust you. What were some of these strategies that you felt comfortable staying and felt like they did a really good job? So, Phillip, do you want to start?
Yeah, on the communication front, getting an early heads up on something I think is very important. So, you don't want to be the last to know about a problem or the last to get a call in a challenging market. So, difficult times are a lot easier to get through when communication is good, and you get a good quality heads up, and you get a detailed explanation. If the BD person doesn't have the background to be able to provide a detailed explanation of exactly what's going on, and that's the type of explanation that's necessary, then being able to bring on a product specialist, a PM, or someone who can really provide the right level of detail is important. So it doesn't seem like people are hiding behind excuses, or we're all allocators, I think, are more than willing to ride through difficult times if they understand why it's difficult, and it's something that would generally be expected over the course of a strategy implementation.
Right. T. Michael.
I think that when you have negative or poor performance, you have a responsibility to your client to have dignity, poise, candor, and truth. So I think being very forthright with them, explaining, making it very clear that there's nothing to hide is just critical. And I think that type of grace under pressure is probably one of the most important traits a business development professional can have. And to Philip's point, I think over the past 20 years, frontline BD people have gotten much smarter. You have a lot of people with MBAs, JDs, people who have been on the investment side, and they can know a lot. But the ultimate thing is when you have a pain point, a pressure point of bad performance, if you can't suffice, you need to get the right resources in front of the client to give them the comfort that you're being a careful steward of their capital.
Great. Michelle.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with all the points both Phillip and T. Michael raised. I think the other thing I would add is allocators hate surprises, right? Especially bad surprises. And I think, one is staying ahead. And I think the other thing is very important is that underperformance should be expected given the market environment, right? I think no strategy is an all-weather strategy, no matter what they say. If it's something that is, based on our understanding of the strategy, it is very reasonable this would happen, and there should be some sort of reversal that's expected. That gives people more confidence this is, stay in for the long haul is worthwhile, versus the other type of, underperformance that is totally out of the blue, that, I saw you were doing this type of investing, now why is this even in the portfolio, right? Or this leverage level is usually how you run the portfolio, but this is what you did during that period. I think that is most, most scary thing for an allocator if ever underperformance happens. So I think that's important to keep in mind when you do conduct those communication.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like all three of you echo this: communicate with EQ and communicate with just, complete care about and putting yourself in the other person's shoes of how would you honestly want them to deliver bad news. So it's great that we're in agreement on that. Obviously now we have a change, not a change, but a new economy, a new environment, right? So naturally there'll be changes in the sales cycle, process, timelines. How should BD people interact with allocators that's most helpful to allocators going forward, as we have to, social distance and be more mindful for the time being? Michelle, I'm gonna throw it back at you.
Sure. I think actually the business development professionals should use this, what we learned through this pandemic, right, to be more efficient. I think Zoom is not going away. I think this should be used as a more effective tool to get more face-to-face meetings versus, compared to pre-COVID. I think the other thing is that to maintain a long and successful relationship, whether you have something to sell to someone or not, or not sell, I think that sounds like bad, or you're pushing something to offer or not, to keep in touch, I think that comes with the EQ and the communication skills to know when to have that communication, when not to, and how frequent based on the relationship. Even I think the best communication I think is when you have nothing to offer me and you give me a call just trying to get an update or just to catch up. Maybe it's 15 minutes, right? Maybe it's 20 minutes. So the other receiving side doesn't feel every time you have this call is about something they have to let you know about the new offerings they have. It could be just very no pressure catch up. I think if you can form to that form that type of relationship as many as possible, it is very powerful. When you do have something all of a sudden that fits the other person's need, you always get an ear to listen. I think it's important to not reach out and then until you have something offset to offer. Have a certain frequency that's not annoying. It's an art and a science. Like what is too pushy, what is persistent. I think there's fine line there. I think everyone has to recalibrate to know what that is.
It's funny because I've actually heard from 7 or 8 of my closest relationships where they would say, Jess, it's really refreshing that you don't call me on the dot the 3rd of every month. Like you call me and you thought about like when to reach out, when. 2 points more of an art. And I think I didn't realize a lot of people really do. It's like a clockwork, right? No matter if it's a holiday or not a holiday, what's going on in someone's life, it's just, there's an auto blast. So I think to your point, being more mindful and mindful about when to reach out based on the person, right? Like who are you talking to? And Michelle, to your point about like, don't catch up just because you need something and you have something to offer. There's so many times where I genuinely just want to catch up because I care about the person. And it turns out, they're actually looking for something that we offer. And to your point, you would have never known if you had one sole goal. And I'm only speaking to people when I need something from you. And people can feel that when you're not being authentic. Like you're not sitting here because you want to. You're sitting here because you're trying to sell me something, right? Hear you on that. tmichaelj, what are your thoughts? I see some nods.
Oh, listen, I think the world is going to change, as we emerge in 2021 with the vaccine, hopefully giving us an ability to resume some sort of travel. I agree with Michelle. Video calls are not going away. Working from home is not going away. I think this is going to be an opportunity for us to rethink our habits and our work practices. Now, I don't think you're going to travel as much as you used to. I think that allocators especially have gotten used to doing a lot of calls and a lot of meetings over video. I still think there's room, especially when you're talking about the trust and the diligence necessary to hand money over from allocator to client, to manager. You're going to have some in-person meetings. But I think, what is it going to be? 40%, 60% of what it used to be? And so the question becomes, in that new world, how do we maintain the type of rhythm that Michelle's talking about? The type of dialogue that Phillip mentioned before, that's information rich and moving a relationship further along. And I think that's going to be a mix of how we use this medium and when we decide to go into the field.
Right. And Phillip, what do you think?
Yeah, and obviously like the video calls and Zoom meetings, et cetera, are here to stay, and they increase efficiency. I think when we do have the ability to do in-person meetings, I know as an allocator, when people gave me the option to meet but didn't make me respond, I think the most difficult emails were when I got emails that, oh, I'm going to be in town, when can we meet, or can we meet? The best emails I got on those types of visits were, I'm going to be in town. If you want to meet, here's like some open days and times. But it didn't require me to say no to people on a regular basis, because I think allocators have this pressure that they're constantly saying no and turning things down and filtering to try and make sure that they're focused on their searches. And so to the extent that people give them the opportunity to interact, but not like this requirement. I mean, some allocators, if they leave their email addresses open to the public, they can spend an entire day just saying no to calls, meetings, and communications, and then you don't get a lot done. So, having that open-end conversation and knowing that, hey, like, it's okay if it's one way a lot of times. It's okay if you shoot me 3 emails and I got back to one of them. It's like when we can sync up, we'll sync up, and don't take it personally. At the same time, don't make me say no every time you think it might be time to interact. Allocators on the back end, I think they really appreciate having the opportunity, but not that requirement to constantly have to say no to things.
Mm. And on the BD side of things, I still remember there are many cases where I'll be emailing someone probably like, once every 2 months, once every 3 months, and over a long time, or even monthly, and no response, nothing. And then when it was right for them, they immediately shot back up and responded and refer to things that I've sent 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So, and Phillip, you were the one who said like, hey, Jess, like, my inbox, I could literally, to your point, spend days reading it, and I'm not going to sit there and respond, but people are absorbing. Don't always assume it's going to the ether, but to your point, like, being thoughtful about open-ended, reaching out, open-ended offers to hang out or have a call or catch up in person, not, again, high pressure strategies. And Michelle, did you give thoughts on this yet? I don't remember. I don't think so.
Maybe I have, but just one quick point is that I think when you, like Phillip said, that you constantly sending emails, sending requests to meet, call, and then become, to an extent, someone just don't even have the capacity to open your emails anyway to see the name again, that they haven't responded for 3 months. They have other things they need to focus on. So, I think you really need to be, mindful about not to overly be pushy, then you'll be losing the access that you already created. It kind of works against you when you work too overboard to the other side. Yeah.
Great. And this is a perfect kind of segue into the final question is, you've hit on it, but once we're up and running, soon it will be, how can BD professionals start preparing for that, right? So you guys really touch on staying on top of people, but any other thoughts about how do we prepare for the reopening, or what not to do? tmichaelj, any thoughts?
I think that a lot of the themes that the 3 of us have mentioned today about being a great listener, about having a sustained dialogue where it transcends product and is really a conversation about updates and thinking about, look, the world's been through a lot and it's a strange world. When I talk to allocators, the 3 top things on their mind seem to be equity risk factor in terms of where valuations are, credit markets in terms of how low rates are and how much debt there is, and then is inflation something I should even be thinking about, right? And those are big issues, and there's no easy fix, but they're going to be the issues that allocators and managers have to tackle in 21. And so if you continue in a disciplined way to respectfully reach out and maintain dialogue, we are talking about those big issues, eventually the connectivity on what your firm does and what they're looking to do will happen.
Great. Phillip.
Yeah, I would just say that the staff at allocators, they've got limited time. So just echoing tmichaelj, like, I think if people put more of a focus on their unique perspective or their firm's unique perspective, or, there's some research that's being done in a certain area that's, allocators want value add information. They want value add perspective. So it's fine to do quarterly updates. It's fine to have quarterly letters. Everyone tries to consume as much of that as possible. Their emails that rise to the top, or the conversations that are attractive, are ones that are helping educate people and inform them of unique information, knowledge, perspective. So leading in headlines with that and giving people opportunity to converse or value-add topics is a good thing to focus on as we come out.
Great. And Michelle?
Yeah, no, I don't think I have a whole lot to add. I think both of Philip and tmichaelj said it beautifully. I think it's to understand what the 2021 challenges are for all these institutions. I think family office will be very different from endowment foundations, right? I think I think endowment foundations, from what I hear, have had a kind of fair bit of challenge in 2020. So I think really try to understand what each institution is facing, what their biggest challenges are. Do that align with everything? Like topic of your podcast is like, does that align with what you can offer, even just in advice, or maybe not necessarily a product, or maybe somebody else is running something that it could be beneficial for this allocator that might be worth mentioning. That's once again value add. It's not necessarily something you offer, but you happen to know because you're in the market, you're the thought leader, like tmichaelj said, and you might be able to point someone the right way. I think it all comes down to kind of understand what their challenges are when you can help.
I agree. Kind of summing up, I think two things I would add is adding on to what Michelle, you just said about value add. For example, a lot of ways that I felt that have been helpful was actually knowing more than just your products, right? Like this is a time for you to know kind of everything in alts, right? So tmichaelj, to your point, yields are low. People are really worried about the equity rally. Where is everyone kind of pouring their money into? Alternatives, but it's massive, right? So you are only as good as your product's only as good as what's also out there. So it's so important to get educated on what are the other options or offerings that an investor can get into. So start learning more about other industries, other ways that people can make money. There's a lot of niche stuff and opportunistic things that people are exploring. So definitely get on that. And secondly, I was saying to your point about being value add, Michelle, you were actually joined one of my happy hours or group hangouts virtually, but allocators, people in general, just love meeting aligned people who can potentially help them, bring them new ideas, find other more fitting strategies. Again, it comes down to, is it a fit? Is it what they want, right? Like you introducing another firm or another strategy, which is exactly what they want, is not going to hurt you, right? If anything, this allocator would be, Jess helped me get this specific manager. I'm probably going to help her and find people that are interested in the products that she's representing. So I think creating a culture of sharing in a more of abundant mindset and creating these pockets of people that you can collaborate with, I think that's a model that we all four of us share, and it's only helped us tenfold. 90% of my relationships, the new relationships that I've cultivated through COVID, so starting in March, were all referrals. So over 40 new relationships were all referrals. I just literally sat in my apartment and people were introduced to me. So I highly encourage people to use a very abundant mindset and find ways to help each other, because it'll all come back to you. So with that said, I just want to wrap up really quickly and say thank you guys so much, and honor each of you individually. Phillip, you've always been such a thoughtful person who can put all different ideas and pieces together and create something amazing. So I really appreciate our nerding out sessions. It's always such a good time to get to know you and share ideas with you. So I really appreciate that. Michelle, you are the real as it gets, and I love it. I can get honest feedback from you, delivered in a very digestible way, which I appreciate. And it's always a good time. You always make me laugh. So thank you for being you. And tmichaelj, it's honestly been such a pleasure, not just being a friend, but having you as at a point in our time being a boss or manager. And I know there's going to be ways that we'll collaborate again in the future. You were just literally a perfect example of what a BD person should be. And I respected you so much, and I still do. And I can't wait what other things that we're going to create and collaborate together. And with that, I want to thank you all for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Very kind of you, Jess. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.